Welcome to Module 1 of the MD Labs Sales Compliance Training Program. This video will cover three primary areas. 1. Communicating with customers. 2. Marketing and entertaining. And 3. Collector utilization and compliance. Understanding, internalizing, and adhering to the MD Labs business practices covered by this program will provide substantial benefit to you, MD Labs, and the communities in which we live and work. From the organization perspective, we operate in a highly regulated industry. As such, having all of our employees uphold to these standards helps ensure that we, MD Labs, follow the laws and regulations. It helps us mitigate risks, and it helps us prevent criminal sanctions, fines, and penalties. From your perspective as an employee, this enables you to understand and be in alignment with expectations from the MD Labs leadership team, making it easier for you to do the right thing. By all of us being on the same page, it promotes an ethical working environment, and as you will learn, we will also provide you with an anonymous method for reporting issues and concerns to help keep the company in compliance. And when it comes to the communities in which we live and work, having all of us operating in accordance with the same business principles and code of conduct demonstrates our commitment to compliance and adhering to our ethics. It builds upon the trust we have established among our clients, suppliers, and in the greater community. And it helps ensure that we continue to provide the highest quality of care and service to our customers. Interaction with healthcare entities and professionals is an important aspect of MD Labs business, including negotiating new business opportunities and maintaining key customer relationships, all of which are involved in the provision of healthcare services. MD Labs interactions with healthcare professionals should be professional in nature, clear and not deceptive, and facilitate the exchange of medical or scientific information that will benefit patient care. To ensure that these collaborative relationships with healthcare professionals meet the proper ethical standards, MD Labs must conduct interactions with appropriate transparency and in compliance with applicable laws, regulations, and government guidance. As such, MD Labs employees and contracted services should look to federal and state laws and regulations for guidance as to what kind of interactions are appropriate. The MD Labs Code of Conduct is very clear. We will conduct business with honesty and integrity wherever we operate. We will strive to always improve our quality of services, products, and operations, and will create a reputation for honesty, fairness, respect, integrity, and trust. No illegal or unethical conduct on the part of our representatives, executives, managers, or employees will be tolerated. The ethical performance of this company is the sum of the ethics of everyone who works here or is affiliated with us. Thus, we are all expected to adhere to high standards of personal integrity. When it comes to communicating with healthcare providers, it is very important to understand what you can and cannot communicate. You can communicate accurate information regarding services provided by MD Labs. Pricing structures for the provision of MD Labs services. Methods of submitting test orders. Collection, packaging, and shipping processes for sending specimens to MD Labs for testing. Criteria to qualify for MD Labs providing a collector or clinical technician is not and cannot be based on volume of services ordered or referrals. On the other side of the coin, here's what you cannot communicate: that a provider may order laboratory services without documented medical necessity, that gifts or payments are available to induce or reward use of MD Labs services, offers to write off or discount fees to induce, refer, or order MD Labs services. You cannot communicate directly with patients. Placement of a collector or clinical technician without approval from the MD Labs Compliance Department. MD Labs will provide you with sales and marketing materials to aid in promoting and selling our lab testing services. We always strive to be accurate, compliant, and honest in all our communications. If you have ideas for your own marketing or sales communication materials, be it flyers, PowerPoint presentations, or any other communication vehicle, you must first discuss these ideas with your sales manager and obtain approval for use from the MD Labs VP of Sales and VP of Operations. Importantly, MD Labs will not use protected patient information for any sales, marketing, or fundraising purposes. When entertaining clients, be it for lunch and learns, breakfasts, dinners, or any other event, you are permitted to provide modest meals such as pizza, sandwiches, and similar fare or items, as long as it is at a reasonable venue where the purpose is to discuss products, and it is incidental to the bona fide discussion or presentation of education or business information related to MD Lab services. It must also be within the allowable annual cap amount per NPI physician, which may change over time and is outlined in the MD Labs policy. The most current regulations on non-monetary compensation and medical staff incidental benefits exceptions can be found at this cms.gov link. Prohibited items consist of any meals, entertainment, or gifts intended to induce or reward referrals or result in the purchase of goods or services, any part of a recreational or entertainment event, any meals for spouses or guests of individuals who do not have a bona fide professional interest in the information shared, any takeout meals provided where an MD Labs representative is not present, or items or meals which exceed the allowed annual cap amount. When it comes to gifts for potential or existing clients, with advance approval from the VP of Sales, you can provide educational items that are not of substantial value and that do not have a value to clients outside their professional responsibilities. What you are prohibited to provide are gifts of cash or cash equivalents, including gift certificates and gift cards, stocks, bonds, or other financial instruments, items intended for personal benefit of clients, such as floral arrangements, art, tickets to recreational events, and the like. Business courtesies of personal entertainment or recreational benefit, such as theater events, sporting events, equipment, and vacation trips, regardless of the value. Any gifts or entertainment involving physicians or other persons in a position to refer patients are subject to federal laws, rules, and regulations regarding these practices, and must be undertaken with the utmost integrity and good judgment. Any uncertainties regarding gifts, meals, and entertainment to potential or existing clients must be directed to the Compliance Department or VP of Sales and VP of Operations. All expenses, including non-monetary compensation, must be tracked and not exceed allowable annual amounts. If you need to develop a compensation arrangement of any kind, you must follow these guidelines. The arrangement must be in writing and signed by both parties. The term of the agreement will be for only 1 year. The value being provided must be consistent with fair market value pricing. The compensation cannot consider the volume or the value of any referrals, and in some cases it must have the additional requirement that the compensation not consider other business generated between the parties. The compensation or rates and services being furnished must be set in advance and identified in the arrangement. And arrangements must go through the proper channels with compliance legal approval prior to implementation. MD Labs will consider lease arrangements, but only after documentation and fair market value requirements are met. Discussion regarding leases or rental of space must involve the VP of Sales and meet the following requirements. Arrangements must be in writing with the term set for a minimum of 1 calendar year. The arrangements must be signed by both parties. It must be accompanied by a written and documented fair market value appraisal. Payments must be set in advance, consistent with the fair market value, and not determined by the volume of referrals or potential volume of referrals. Arrangement must show the floor plan, dimensions, square footage, and use of the space. Arrangements must comply with state and local regulations. And the arrangement must be commercially reasonable in the absence of referrals between the two parties. Patient service centers must meet the same requirements as arrangements with referral sources. They must contain direct access to a public area, or have its own entrance, exit, and waiting area, and they must be open to serve the public. Signs must identify the location as an MD Labs Patient Service Center. The notice of privacy practices must be posted in a common area, likely to be seen by all patients. The VP of Sales and VP of Operations must be provided the documentation and included in all discussions regarding potential lease arrangements prior to execution of arrangements. If you are going to be leasing equipment, the lease must be in writing and signed by both parties. The arrangement must specify the equipment that is the subject of the lease, along with the duration of the lease arrangement, which must be for at least 1 year. Equipment is to be used exclusively by the lessee and cannot be shared with or used by the lessor or any other person or entity related to the lessor. Rental charges need to be set in advance and over the term of the lease be consistent with fair market value. The arrangement must be commercially reasonable, even if no referrals were made between the lessee and the lessor. The leased equipment cannot exceed what is reasonable and necessary for the purposes of the lease, and arrangements must go through compliance and legal for approval prior to implementation. If you have or are considering a collector, you need to be aware the Office of the Inspector General issued a special fraud alert which warns that a laboratory may be violating the anti-kickback statute if the lab places an employee in a client's office and the employee performs staff responsibilities that are not directly related to the services of the laboratory. If you are considering placing a collector employed by MD Labs within a provider's facility, the following must be communicated to the client. MD Labs must have access to employed collectors. This includes on-site visits and providing consistent communication. Under no circumstance is a client permitted to block compliance access to MD Labs employed collectors. MD Labs will not employ any individual from the provider's facility or any individuals who share a personal or professional relationship with the provider or staff. MD Labs collectors are not permitted to select test orders and diagnosis codes on test order requisition forms, including electronic orders via the client web portal. Additionally, MD Labs may not pay a client to perform phlebotomy on the client's patients or pay a client for services performed by the client's phlebotomist. Pay a client's employee to provide services for the client's patients. Pay a client for space used by a company collector or phlebotomist in connection with an in-office arrangement. Pay an employee placed in the provider's facility for full-time hours if the workload only justifies part-time hours. When placing a laboratory test order, the ordering provider or designated staff member must sign or electronically sign every patient requisition form prior to submitting to MD Labs for testing. Blanket orders for all patients will not be permitted, as they are not patient-specific and therefore not medically necessary. The collector may complete patient demographics and enter billing information, but the collector is not permitted to select test orders or diagnosis codes. Ordering providers may not provide MD Labs collector's PIN or code numbers to electronically sign in place of the ordering provider. This may lead to immediate termination of services with the ordering provider. Regarding the provision of supplies, MD Labs does not supply point-of-care testing devices or containers. Equipment for the use by MD Labs employed collectors may be provided for responsibilities directly related to the submission of specimens to MD Labs for laboratory testing. The provider's staff may not use MD Labs equipment under any circumstance. The activities that are permitted by an MD Labs employed collector include collecting specimens that will be submitted to MD Labs for testing, preparation for shipment of specimens to MD Labs for testing, ensuring all administrative paperwork is properly completed, including patient demographics, required billing and health insurance information, and information specific to the tests ordered for the patient, retrieving patient information or test reports, and maintaining collection area and documents relating to services performed by MD Labs. The activities that are expressly prohibited by an MD Labs employed collector include collection and/or preparation of specimens for laboratories other than MD Labs, unless authorized by VP of Sales and VP of Operations. In such cases, the VP of Sales and VP of Operations must sign the agreement. Completing or signing off on paperwork on behalf of the ordering provider. Accessing patient charts for any reason other than directly related to testing performed by MD Labs. Performing duties that the client's staff would normally perform and do not relate directly to the testing performed by MD Labs. Nor if the client has an office laboratory, entering billing information, test results, or any other information related to the client's office laboratory rather than MD Labs. Providers who are excluded from utilizing MD Lab services include any healthcare provider who has been excluded from participating in federal healthcare programs. It is a violation of the False Claims Act to submit claims by excluded providers to federal healthcare programs. MD Labs performs monthly sanctioned screening checks against multiple databases for possible exclusions of current and potential providers. If a physician has been excluded from federal healthcare programs, MD Labs will not accept direct or indirect referrals of federal specimens, and services may be terminated. Thank you for watching this training session on the MD Labs Sales Compliance Program. Direct any questions to your immediate supervisor or call 775-391-5221 and ask for Human Resources extension 111. When results count, count on MD Labs.